Love will guide us indeed. So as I mentioned before, I spoke of Soul Matters, and some of you might already be familiar with Soul Matters, which is a UU-based, theme-based ministry program. So congregations across the country subscribe to this, and they follow a theme every month. Now, being a circuit riding chaplain as I am, I'm called to preach in many UU congregations in the Mid-Atlantic, some of which subscribe to Soul Matters. So it seems sensible this year that I plan my services every month according to the Soul Matters themes. The theme, as you can imagine, for February, given Valentine's Day, among other things, is love. But, you know, love is a rather broad topic. It can mean a lot of things, right? We use it frequently in our language. I mean, I know I do at least. We often use love to speak of our favorite foods. I love pie, for instance. We often say we love a certain place, or we love clothing, like I love your jacket. I heard that today. I love it too. We love bands. We love certain music. We love activities like sports. I bet there are a few Super Bowl fans, right? Football fans out there, maybe watching, maybe here right now. We might even say we love our work. In addition to saying that we love our partners, our families, our friends, and yes, our pets. So the word love is used so much that I would argue it may seem to lack meaning. Now, I admit when I started conceiving this sermon, I think I told Jan or someone in your congregation that I wanted to preach on love. A lot of pop songs popped into my head. Maybe that happens to you when you hear the word love. Of course, many of these songs refer to romantic love, or what is known as eros to the Greeks. Now, bear with me. As I came of age in the 1970s, late 1970s and early 80s, so the song that popped into my head immediately was by Huey Lewis and the News, "The Power of Love." Okay, I'm going to try this. You don't need money. You don't need fame. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden and it's cruel sometimes, but it just might save your life. That's the power of love. All right. I did it. Yay. I didn't even warm up, right? And I know it dates me. But there were other songs that came to mind too. I thought of the song, "I Want to Know What Love Is" by Foreigner. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. And I also thought of "Love Stinks" by the Jay Giles Band. I gave her diamonds. I gave her minks. All I can say is love stinks. Love stinks. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's not exactly the best fodder for a sermon on love, I know. Yet that song helped open up my mind a little bit to 1,000 other songs about love beyond eros. Songs like Pride, or commonly known as "In the Name of Love" by U2. You remember that one? It's actually referring to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And I thought, aha, here we go. Let me be guided by the Reverend Dr. King. And this is, after all, as I said, Black History Month. Now, what King really preached about was agape love. And, you know, that seems really appropriate to talk about today, really relevant today. Now, as you heard in the reading, King preached love is the greatest force in all the world. Love, as in agape love, was central to King's message always. He gave many, 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 many sermons in his home congregation of Ebenezer Baptist Church on love. It was the driving force of his mission. In 1963, a year before I was born, he published The Strength to Love. It's a book that had a number of his sermons. And this was a breakthrough book because it was the first book published by a Black minister to a largely white audience. That really crossed a lot of lines back in 1963. And one of King's most famous quotes is published in that book. He said, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Now, when King spoke of agape love, he was talking about the love of God operating in the human heart. It's an unconditional love, given freely without demands or self-interest. It asks for nothing in return. Agape love is a Christian concept, but it isn't exclusively Christian. In fact, Unitarian Universalism historically has centered upon agape love. Perhaps you're familiar with the Side with Love campaign. It was formerly known as Standing on the Side of Love. And perhaps you've heard about the UUA's proposed draft Article 2. This is the article in the UUA bylaws that contains those 7 principles. After last year's General Assembly, which voted to put together a commission to make recommendations to changing Article 2, the board put together a charge, appointed a commission, and that charge basically said, we want you to include love in your proposed revisions to Article 2. And Article 2 Commission complied. The proposed draft that was presented to the UUA board just in January states the following. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Unquote. So that is the proposed, a portion of the proposed Article 2. Now, I appreciate Article 2's commission's focus on values. I think focusing on values and defining Unitarian Universalism today is the direction that we all need to take. However, I have to admit, this reference to love without further definition seemed to me almost trite, like a cop-out. As the Reverend Dr. King observed, and I think any of us know from our own experience, there are all kinds of love, aren't there? People love all kinds of things, including money. People love all kinds of ideas, including power. And it seems to me that the UUA would make a stronger statement if Article 2 defined what we mean by love. I know a statement linking love to God may not fly for Unitarian Universalists today, but might there be something that all UUs love, that we can all agree on, that we love? It might be just love of life, the fact that we are alive, but also everything, it might be love for Earth itself, which supports life. Last week, I conducted a small group discussion with a UU fellowship that's in a retirement village. And we talked about love and what that means and the proposed Article 2. And eventually the conversation turned to King's conviction that love is the greatest force on earth. People in the group did seem to think that love is powerful, but I still heard pushback on that idea that love is the greatest force. One member of the group said that hate is equally powerful. Equally powerful. And he didn't seem convinced that love can drive out hate. Others said that greed, which is essentially, in my opinion, love of money and the power that it represents, is also powerful and may be more powerful than love. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with them or agree with them. I have to admit, there seems to be a lot of hate in the world, isn't there? Still. And living in Baltimore, the group couldn't help but to talk about the arrest of two people just this past week, Monday, actually. A man named Brandon Russell and a woman named Sarah Clendaniel. They were plotting to blow up a power station or several substations around the city of Baltimore. In fact, my sister, who lives in New York City, texted me early Tuesday morning and said, "Are you okay?" And I hadn't read the news yet. I normally read the Times in the morning and the Baltimore Sun, but I hadn't gotten to that yet. And I texted her back and I said, "Yeah, well, what's the problem? Something happened that you know about that I don't?" And she says, "Oh, well, I heard about the plot. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I immediately got on the internet, read my Baltimore Sun and my New York Times, and sure enough, I found out about this plot and how they were going to do this. And what was really interesting reading about these two individuals, one, Brandon Russell, apparently is a neo-Nazi. Yeah. And Clendaniel is a romantic partner of his, but apparently she is dying. And so she thought that she wanted to do this because it was one good thing that she could do before she died. She wanted to do something worthwhile before she died. And I found that really, really interesting. Because, of course, doing this is not too good. It's hateful. And yet I could see how she was, from her own point of view, acting out of love. She was acting out of love. And I kind of pointed this out to the group. And many people in the group said, "Well, that's not real love." But I was reminded of the Reverend James Luther Adams. Perhaps you're familiar with him. He was a very influential Unitarian minister in the 20th century. And he was actually paid by the US Army to brief soldiers going into the European theater of war during World War II. What was he briefing them on? He was briefing them on the religion of the Nazis. You say religion of the Nazis. Yeah, religion of the Nazis. You see, he posited and explained to these soldiers that the Germans following Hitler professed a love of the fatherland, Germany, fatherland, and the Führer, which is German for father, they did everything out of love. And indeed, Hitler himself actually talked about love of country. So it made me think when I was writing the sermon about the mechanics of love, whether it's love of a person, a place, a concept, or a cause. How does love operate in the world that would make it a powerful force? And it seems to me that love involves loyalty. When you love someone or something, you're loyal to it or them. You direct your attention and your energy to preserving the object of your love. You may even be willing to die for your love. And therein may lie the power of love. Why? Because you will always put the object of your love first. And if given a choice between competing loyalties, you will choose what you love over everything else. This may be why some people in power might disparage romantic or familial love, because it can undercut the loyalty of people to those in power. They always insist that you put loyalty to them and their cause first. So familial or romantic love undercuts that. That was certainly the case in Nazi Germany. Adolf Hitler, as I said, he would often preach about love of the fatherland and say that it was the greatest love in all the world, and encourage not only young men to sign up and fight in his war, but also for young women to marry pure Aryans and have children for the love of the fatherland, for love of country. And, you know, frankly, I'm kind of hearing that similar argument these days by some people, even in our own country. But I don't want to really give these people and those ideas too much attention now. The only reason why I'm pointing this out is that they're actually examples of the power of love. You may think, what? Yeah, I think they're examples of the power of love as much as Jesus and as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King are. The difference isn't whether they love, but what they love. There's the difference. So my question for you today is, what do you love? And if you're not sure at this moment, I ask you to consider these things. What do you pay attention to? What do you value? What do you nurture? What do you put above all others? What do you feel the most loyalty to? What are you willing to sacrifice for? Yes, and maybe even die for. That, I think, helps you to understand what you truly love. And it's not important only because it brings you personal clarification and clarity, but it's also important if you want to preserve what you love. When you know what you love, you can join with others who love the same thing. And when a lot of people who share the same love work together, they are a powerful force because they are powered by their love. And that's why I think it's important for Unitarian Universalists to name what we love and come to some consensus on what we love as Unitarian Universalists. Imagine what we could do together when we share the same love. We might just create that beloved community which the Reverend Dr. King promoted and indeed died for. We might just make, in the words of King, this old world a new world. And in the words of Huey Lewis, it might just save our lives. That, my friends, is the power of love. So with that, I invite you to tell me what your thoughts are.